Hey, NDHG here, and recently I went to the Too Many Games Expo, and I picked up quite a few good things, and I've had a really fun time, but I'm going to talk about my experience in detail on the Suburban Media Gaming channel, so stay tuned for that. But today I want to go over everything that I picked up, all the cool, interesting, and odd stuff that I found at Too Many Games. So to begin, I will say this: my Super Nintendo collection has gotten quite a lot of love from my Too Many Games trip, as I went to a vendor that had $5 Super Nintendo games, and I picked up both Mortal Kombat 3, which is definitely unbalanced, and just pick a ball and you'll win. But I also picked up Super Return of the Jedi, which I was surprised to find in a $5 bin because this game goes for about $15 or $20 usually. But hey, when you see a good deal like that, you take it. Up next, I have Castlevania Dracula X, which was one of the biggest finds I made over the weekend. And there was other copies of it on the showroom floor, but this was the better looking out of all of them because I get very picky about how my labels look. And with this, it was one of the games that weren't as good when it comes to label protection compared to other Super Nintendo games, kind of like Mega Man X3. So finding one with a really good label can be harder than finding a copy at all. And then, speaking of rare games, I actually managed to pick up this copy of Sparkster, which is much different than the Sega Genesis version of it. And I want to thank Mike for helping me get that. Stuff I was surprised I didn't have in my collection was a copy of Super Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo, which I found for about $10. And I think that usually goes for about $20 or $15 right now. And I found a box and manual for it as well on the showroom floor, which is something unusual I see at these conventions, is people selling just the box and the manual. But thankfully someone had it for only like $10, I think, and I picked that up as soon as I found it. Something I actually picked up before the convention started was actually CTR, which is the newest remaster of the Crash games. And that one is of Crash Team Racing, as you all know, and it came with a bobble for my car, but I can't seem to find it right now, so I'm just going to show you. Oh, here it is. And up next we have Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, which I picked up from Limited Run Games. This is a really fun title, and I have it on the 3DS, but now I'm happy to have it on the Switch as well. And from Limited Run, you can't really go wrong. And speaking of, while I didn't get this from the Limited Run booth, I did find a copy of this on the floor, and this was the cheapest one I could find. This is Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which, if you see my video about that, you know I love this game. And I didn't have it on the PS4 for some reason, so I wanted to get a physical copy, but the Limited Run site ran out of these so quickly. But I was happy to find this while I was hunting around in Too Many Games. There was one other vendor that did have it, but it was for $60, and this one was only for $40, which is just a $10 difference than what it was originally going for. Up next, we have Final Fantasy Anthology, and I've been on a kick of finding the PlayStation collectors, or collections of Final Fantasy games, and this one has 5 and 6. As you can tell, Terra is right there. And the only ones I don't have left right now is the one with 1 and 2 on it. But hopefully I'll find that soon, along with a copy of Tactics. This was something I used to have in my collection ever since I owned the GameCube, but I finally bought a new one. Super Smash Bros. Melee. I mean, what can be said about Melee that hasn't been said? And it includes the manual and the disc. And I found a couple of nice magazines, Nintendo Power related, including the Super Mario Bros. 3 Strategy Guide, which I remember having this as a kid. My mom got this for me to help me beat this game, and there's just so much nostalgia with this. I don't know what happened to the one that I had, but I was happy to find this on my first run through of the game. Like, they don't make them. They don't make strategy guides like this anymore. In fact, I don't think people use strategy guides these days anyway. And I also found a copy of the Nintendo Power covering All Stars, which includes a little bit of coverage of Felix the Cat. No, not Felix the Cat, but it also shows various different games such as Star Fox. And it actually has Final Fantasy III Legends, which I believe was a Secret of Mana game in Japan. And there was quite a few ROM hacks and reproduction cards, which there's usually one table at the convention that is dedicated to it. It wasn't there for some reason, but I managed to find a couple of these while I was walking around. And the first one I got was Final Fantasy V for the Super Nintendo, which practically completes my Final Fantasy collection of Super Nintendo games. I mean, I would like to have a box Super Famicom version just because it looks cool, but I'm happy to have this. And then I found a copy of the Nintendo World Championship, which the contest itself was actually happened around the same time I was born, I think. A couple months before. And unfortunately, I found out there was a box for these, which I feel terrible for because I really wanted it, but at the same time, it does come with a manual which tells you how this game works and gives you a little bit of history with it. But one thing I did get a box for was Nintendo Campus Challenge, which includes games like Super Mario Bros. 3, Pinbot, and Dr. Mario, which only two of those games I ever played. I never played Pinbot before. And I did manage to find a actual copy of this game, but it was way too expensive. So I settled on a reproduction of Mr. Gimmick on NES. Now, one thing I do appreciate with these people who make the ROM hacks and reproductions, usually you find them in just cart form, but there are some people who like to go above and beyond and make an actual box for it, and it just looks great. And they also make manuals for it too. Though this one didn't come with the manual, I don't think. But I am happy because Mr. Gimmick's a game I've always wanted to play since I watched Pat's video on it. One of the most interesting things I found, because John Riggs, if you're familiar with his channel, he was actually walking around the showroom this year. And he actually had copies of Bob's Burgers on NES. Now, I love this show so much, and obviously there was no Bob's Burgers on NES, but this is actually a ROM hack of Burger Time. And I realize I'm terrible at Burger Time when I play this game, but I love it mostly for the sake of saying that I have Bob's Burgers on NES, and this is a really fun one to have. And while it's not a repro or a ROM hack, I did manage to find a box for the first Mega Man game. And the manual doesn't come included with it, to my surprise. And as of recently, if you follow my Instagram page, I actually completed my box Mega Man games on NES, which is not going to include ones like Mega Man 9 or 10 because they're just press kits. But when it comes to the original classic series games, I've basically completed all of them for finding a box, which includes Mega Man 7, which is way more expensive and rarer to find than this one. And I mostly love this cover just for how ironically funny it is. Well, not ironically, but how hilariously terrible it is. And it's just a bit of history now in my collection, and finally glad to have this one. And for anyone who knows me or follow my Instagram, they know that I play the Dragon Ball Super card game. So the special anniversary box came out that day, and I picked up the Broly one, which these things are really good because they have some brand new cards which can be really good for old decks out there. And it also includes reprints of staple cards for current meta decks right now, like Senzu Bean or Burst Attack Gohan. But I finally got my first copy of Scientist Fu, and if I can get it out, a 1-star ball, which I kind of like this artwork a little bit better than the original. Now, one of the biggest finds I made was the Virtual Boy, which at first, the vendor I went to, I didn't even know if it was for sale, but they said it was for sale, and it was about $160, and you can't really pass up on that. And it came with the controller and a battery pack for it, which has the Super Nintendo adapter on it. And I did pick up a few games for it that weekend, just so I have stuff to play it with. And the first game I picked up for the Virtual Boy was Telero Boxer, which is a kind of Mike Tyson Punch-Out-esque game. And then there was Mario's Tennis, which, everybody knows how that works. I also picked up Vertical Force, strangely a Japanese copy of it. I didn't think I see a American one for some reason. I don't know why. And then I picked up Mario Clash, which is actually a pretty fun game. I know Screw Attack announced it as one of the worst Mario games for some reason, but this is really fun. And this is Wario Land on Virtual Boy, which is much different than the Game Boy. Well, not the Game Boy Color, just the regular Game Boy version. Like, this is specifically Virtual Boy Wario Land for a reason. And this was something I've been meaning to have in my collection for a while, but most of the friends that I hang out with or go to these conventions with, they have anime statues, and one of them has a nice collection of them. Actually, a couple of them have nice collections of them, and I kind of felt left out. So I did originally see one of these at Round 1 in Exton, but I picked up this for only about 25 bucks, which is a Dragon Ball Super Broly statue. I don't know where I'm going to put it yet, but I'm finally glad I could have one anime statue, and definitely of a character I really like. And one of the most interesting finds I made this entire weekend was this nifty little thing, which has both the Famicom Classic and the Super Famicom Classic, along with a AC adapter for both. Now, if you see my video from last year, I do own both the NES and Super Nintendo Classics. And I think they're great, though there's some questionable game choices on both of them. Of course, Japan have their own versions of them, with both the Family Computer and both the Super Famicom ones. And they both have a great, and arguably kind of a better library of games on both of them. Like, this one also includes the Famicom disc version of certain games, like Hyrule Fantasy, Link's Adventure. My only problem with the Family Computer Classic is that the controllers are a little bit too small. Now, I didn't open this yet. I kind of want to do an unboxing on this, but I got to test one out on the showroom, well, the arcade room, and these things are tiny. Like, I don't know if I have a picture reference here, but these were so tiny. Now, the Super Famicom one, they got it right. The controller size is exactly the same as a regular Super Famicom controller, but these they made too small, and not to mention they built it into the back of the console with the Family Computer, just like the original one. But I wish that they didn't, and I get that, they had to put it on the sides of the thing, and that's why it's so small, but it feels like a baby's toy, or something that my students would be able to play with. And I do like the concept of this, and I wish that they did the same with the Super Nintendo and NES Classic, was to release both of them in one. Like, it's obviously two separate things. Like, once I open this, it's just going to be two different boxes, but hey, it's a package deal. And after 2 minute games was over, Classic Game Junkie was actually open for a little bit for anyone who wanted to get some last minute finds. And while I was over there, I met some YouTubers like Matty McMuscles, Scott the Waz, Balrog, and Ant Dude, just shopping around. And don't forget Gilly and Shane from Re-Raz. It was really nice to meet some of them and, catch up with some of them I haven't seen in a while. And I didn't really get anything too special, but I picked up I Can Remember a Fisher-Price game. Like, you know, you take a look at this. It's mostly a game that was just nostalgic to me. It's a game I picked up for nostalgia's sake. I remember having all the Fisher-Price games. I mean, I had fun games growing up too, but this was definitely one I remember. And like obviously as an adult, I don't need this, but I think it's just for the nostalgia's sake, as I said. And I also picked up a Famicom game, which was Star Wars. Now, I don't usually hear too many good things about this one, but I do love Star Wars, and I definitely wanted to try this out for myself. Very difficult from what I've seen. So thank you for listening to me ramble and show off what I picked up at Too Many Games. Now, as I said, I will be talking more in detail about Too Many Games with my friends at Suburban Media Gaming, so check out for that. And for those who are waiting for a new Remember This episode, well, I am working on quite a few of them right now, and there should be 2 on the way at the time I'm making this video. And by that I mean there should be 2 that just need to be voiced over and then filmed. Hopefully right after I'm done this video. So stay tuned for that as well. In the meantime, thank you for watching. This has been Andy HG, and I'll see you soon. Okay, because I'm an idiot, I forgot some other things that I picked up, which right now I'm filming on my phone as a result. But one of the quick things I found at Too Many Games was a $2 copy of Extreme G. Never owned it, never tried it, but you know, for $2 you can't go wrong. And Classic Game Junkie made a brand new shirt design, and I was one of the first people to pick it up. And as you see there, the Classic Game Junkie logo right there in the middle of the shirt looks beautiful. And one of the last things I picked up was Umahara Kawase on the Super Famicom, and this is a complete copy. Now, Umahara Kawase was a Super Famicom exclusive that I still don't think we ever got this one on Virtual Console or anything. But they started to release the other games in the series recently, starting with the 3DS. And there's quite a few of them out there for both the PSP, the PS Vita, the PlayStation 1. And there's going to be one coming out on the Switch very soon, and I'm really excited for that because I think that's going to be the first physical copy version of Umahara Kawase we're going to get. So, yeah, sorry for this random change in quality, but these were some of the last things I picked up, and I wanted to talk about them. So in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.